Business challenges have changed. They're quicker, bigger, more disruptive. So is that worrying or exciting? How do today's successful leaders think? We're on a mission to find out.
Translating your ideas into numbers, facts, logical narrative is very important.
This is how they plan projects, think, structure, solve and succeed.
And I think the future of organisations actually are organisations that create 3 digital twins.
Inspiring you to look at things from a different perspective, to see the bigger picture, to change the game.
To take that no as an opportunity to understand why they are saying no. If I look at the leaders that I admire the most around me, I think one of the key skills that they have is that collaborative influence. And collaborative influence basically is the power to have somebody who doesn't work for you. And that is a very, very specific skill that not everybody has. And I think it's very important because today we don't work in silos. And I don't know if you heard about, I know everybody's unique, but if you think about people and, kind of classified into kind of people, you have the eros and the logos. And the logos are the people who it's all about the facts, the numbers. They usually like power, everything is kind of black and white or white. And then the eros are the creative people, they are passionate, they look at the big picture. I am an eros. Trying to understand how the logos people see the world and translating your ideas into numbers, facts, logical narrative is very important. So I think there is a piece about that empathy and try to understand the leaders you're trying to influence to translate your idea into how they see the world that is really, really powerful.
Yeah, I think you touch upon 2 very important things there. One, I'm actually a big fan of the Greeks' research into persuasion and sophistry and rhetoric, which is, as you say, the logos, ethos and pathos. So pathos is your credibility or and your how much experience you have. The second is the emotional. How does this feel in terms of, does it feel like it makes sense? And then does it logically make sense? And whenever I'm engaging with people, I try to make sure that obviously I come across with credibility, particularly in AI. I try to argue something that feels right, but also makes logical sense. I think you're right, there are people that lean more towards emotional and also logical. I like to try to make sure that we do both, because I think then you have a stronger argument. And people ask me, what's the next superpower after AI? So what do my children need to be learning in a world where AI might be doing more jobs, more automation? And I often say orchestration. And what I mean by orchestration is 2 things. One is your ability to sort of orchestrate complex systems or architect complex systems to solve a problem. AIs are still not quite good at orchestrating complex systems to solve problems, but the other orchestration is orchestrating people and taking them on a journey and following you and buying into what you're suggesting.
I think another very important piece is about speaking the same language. So if you are trying to influence your colleagues in the leadership team, speaking the language of the business is very important. And in marketing, this can happen quite often. So focusing on customer, profit, revenue, which is what really the business cares about, is very important. And move away from our jargon, from IT or from marketing, talking about MQLs and other things that actually the business doesn't understand, and have that kind of very clear, simple language aligned to the business, I think is also quite key in terms of influencing.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I've been, maybe just to add to that, over the past 17 years I've been building AI solutions for large organizations, and of course there's often resistance from organizations because they feel like they've been in that business for 20-30 years, they know about their domain, they don't think necessarily a technology can come and understand and make decisions or drive value better than that human. So you're absolutely right. I think being able to speak their language is critical. The other thing as well you have to do is take them on a journey to buy into these technologies. And we found historically is that by going in and saying, we can do something better than what you've historically done, they reject. What we found works really well is identifying the people who are skeptical, and then validating their own hypothesis, validating the understanding they have about their customers or their business, showing them what they believe to be true is true, putting numbers around it and empowering them. And then once you start to they start to buy into the power of technology, then you can start to show them things that they didn't know existed. And taking people on that journey, I think, is really important.
What are their objectives, and how can you get their feedback and iterate your idea? And if you go, if you kind of take their feedback on board, make some changes and present it back, that communication is usually really well appreciated. It might not change the no, but usually people can be quite receptive to that and then embrace and support your idea. So I think that resilience of not taking the first no as an answer and trying to work out how can you make your idea a bit better is very important.
Yeah, indeed. And we've seen in the past where you get leadership bought into an idea, but then they impose the solution on the people who are using these systems or whose lives are going to be affected. And historically, that never plays out well.
And the importance of maybe bringing some of those users or managers that will have to deal with that idea early in the process, so they can feel part of the project as well, I think is very important.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've seen quite successful in organizations is identifying that first use case where they become evangelists for that technology. Good news and bad news travels quickly across organizations, so choosing the right use case that could then be hyped, and again, identifying those people that will embrace ambiguity, that you'll be able to work with to get the solution to the right place, is critical.
When you have a project that you have little support for it, but they will meet all the objectives that you want, versus having a project that will meet 75% of the objectives, but has 100% support. If you have to choose, it's better to have the one where you actually have the support from the influencers, although there might be a kind of compromise because you cannot get all the objectives you initially had.
No, I agree, and actually it reminds me of one of the key challenges associated with AI. We've been applying AI to solving problems predominantly across supply chains for many years, allocating workforces, routing vehicles, and typically there's sort of one KPI that needs to be achieved, and that KPI satisfies that one particular stakeholder. And I think historically when we've built technologies or implemented technologies, the goal is to improve that KPI. What's interesting about AI is that AI can improve that KPI significantly, and it can improve the KPI so significantly that it actually can cause harm or problems in other parts of the supply chain. So one of the projects that we did 7 or 8 years ago now was with a big audit firm where they had 5,000 auditors they need to allocate to a demand, and the KPI was to increase utilization. If we can get more billable hours by applying algorithms in a smarter way, the project would be very successful. We built an algorithm that massively improved utilization. Of course, the business was very happy because that would mean that there's more billable hours, but people would have been driving longer distances to clients. Clients wouldn't be getting the continuity that they wanted. Employees wouldn't be having time to train. And what's interesting about AI now is that we now have to actually look at KPIs across different parts of the supply chain that affect HR, affect sales, affect marketing, operations, to make sure that we're bringing all of those stakeholders in and considering the impact of what success looks like to all of those different stakeholders, which on the one hand maybe make it more challenging, but the promise of AI is actually it can improve the KPIs across the whole system and not just one.
And having that clarity on what are your KPIs, not only the one, but for everybody, I think is quite important as well.
And how those different KPIs interact with each other. If we increase a KPI over here, how does it affect another KPI over here? Which is where, again, digital twins are really important. We know that AI can solve problems across supply chains, but we also now want to build simulations of organizations so we can see the effect it has across our whole business. And I think the future of organizations actually are organizations that create 3 digital twins. The one digital twin is of the flow of goods across your supply chain that's unique to you. The second is your workforce, that liquid layer of resources you need to allocate on top, and back office processes, hiring and firing and onboarding and offboarding. And I think that what we need to do is build these 3 digital twins and then converge them over the next 5-10 years. And I think those companies that do build those 3 digital twins are the ones that are going to survive and thrive.